Hi there. My name is Leanne Giesler, and this is Quizizz 101. It's not what you can do for Quizizz, but what Quizizz can do for you. So, a disclaimer is you're going to see this little Goose Tech 101 in every corner, and that's because I have a dual purpose here. This is my rebranding of my label. It comes from my last name, Giesler, which is pronounced obviously Giesler, which gets shortened to geese, and then always to Mama Goose every single year, no matter what. So, thus, the birth of Goose Tech 101, which, like I said, is my rebranding. Objectives of this lesson. I'm going to introduce you to Quizizz. I'm going to tell you all about it, what it is, how do you connect to your LMS, whatever it may be, what the choices are, super versus free, how the library works, how you can create a lesson, how you can copy and edit, creating, embedding videos, and assigning quizzes. So, if you are getting this via Google Slides, which I included in my turn-in, you actually have I created this in Pear Deck. So you have a option in Pear Deck that you can interact with your students. So if you're using this with students, or if you're using this with new and emerging teachers, which I plan to do, you would say, "What can quizzes do for you?" And they could actually type in, which is like a really unique part of this and Pear Deck is that it's interactive. It's like a Google slide that becomes interactive with anybody who has the link. So, what do you need to know about Quizizz to get started? First of all, it's 100% online. That's the great part about it. It gives you immediate feedback. It gives the students immediate feedback. And I don't know what it works better for, you or the students, because some of my most reluctant students will bring me their quizzes on their phone and say, "Look, I made 100, Miss Giesler. This is amazing." And they're super excited about the fact that it gave them immediate feedback. Or I allow them to do it a couple of times. Maybe they have unlimited and they have to make a 90 to show proficiency. Or maybe I give them two chances and they have to show their proficiency in two chances. And that's fine. The deal is it's 100% online and it makes kids eager to want to know, even your most reluctant. Down here, I'm showing you how you can use quizzes with your favorite LMS. There is a learn more button, and it just tells you, like, this is what you need to do to hook it up. And it's pretty simple to hook it up. You just literally click on import classes from your LMS, log into your LMS, and it's all there for you. There are options for teachers. There's two options, free versus super, and obviously free is free, but free also has limitations, and the fact that you have limitations on things that you can do. I pay for mine every year, $60 out of my own pocket. The best $60 I've ever spent in my teaching career was on Quizizz. And that's why I'm choosing to do this lesson for STEM education on Quizizz. Um, and there's reasons why. If you look at what you get for the super versus the basic, you can create as many quizzes as you want. There's no limit. So I have like, my library is huge. I have all of the units set up for every class that I teach, and I teach four. So I have every unit set up. I have quizzes that I've made, that I've adopted from people, and then I've adapted them to make them my own. I have quizzes that I've made on my own. Everything I do, I make public. So that's another cool part, is that people use your quizzes stuff once you make them public. Unlimited library access is also huge, because when you get unlimited library access, you can get all of the quizzes that have ever been created. It's really hard to say quizzes is, but you get all of them, and they say 20 million and counting, and that's probably old data because of how many are created all the time. You can teleport questions, and that's one of my favorite features of the super is I can take a quiz and I can say create a quiz on engineering design, and then I can say teleport, and I can teleport questions from like any engineering design quiz that's public that's been produced, and I can pull the questions that I like from them. And then once I get into that editing feature, those ones that I pull, if I don't like the way that they worded things, I can actually edit those and make them my own. So that's a cool thing too. Other thing, I don't know why I keep going backwards here, is that you can pick any assignment deadline. I can tell you right now, I choose not to put deadlines on anything. And that's because we all know we get transfers, we get all kinds of stuff. And quizzes is having no deadline helps a lot, because if you set a deadline on anything, it stops the quiz at that moment. And so you have to go back and reopen it for certain students, and that becomes a pain. So I prefer not to set deadlines on anything. But as you can see here, the super is way better than the basic, because on the basic, you're not going to get any of these things. And so that $60 a year is amazing. It's the most amazing money you'll ever spend. Or if you're lucky, your district has spent it on your entire campus. So that's free versus super. All right. So the next thing is, what do you need to know about quizzes? Like, what is the deal? Again, you can link this to your LMS, or you can create a class. If you link it to your LMS, you see here, you could just import. Now, obviously, these are locked for me because we don't have Schoology and we don't have Canvas, so these are locked. But I can link to Google Classroom, which I do. Or you can actually create a class and you can build your own rosters if that's not a part of your LMS. So I feel like most schools have gone to one of these three LMSs, so it makes it a little easier on you. But also, if you wanted to create a class, or if you have a special class, like I have an enrichment class, which is um, a makerspace, and so I could create a class for just those kids if I wanted to, the ones that are doing the actual makerspace. There's two ways to create an assignment, and it shows you here. If you decide you want to create your own assignment, you can hit new quiz, where you create your own quiz with your own questions. You could also teleport if you're super. Or you could create a new lesson where you can embed PowerPoints, you can embed videos, and it actually becomes a lesson for the kids. And you can or can't ask them questions. It's up to you if you want to embed questions with the PowerPoints. But that lesson is a pretty cool feature that I use quite often in my classroom. You can also search any quizzes that's ever been pushed out to public. And so when it says here, what will you teach today? You just type it in, like search. I want to teach cell reproduction. Like, how does this work? How does mitosis work? Or something, any keyword. I found when I was teaching STAR courses, I could put in the STAR reporting category for that subject, and I would get lots of lessons on that specific STAR reporting category. So the possibilities are endless on this. The next thing is, if you actually get in and you find a quiz you like, this is what you're going to see. It's going to give you a choice of quizzes, and it's going to say, oh, hey, here's your choice of questions from that particular quizzes. So what I normally do is I would embed one and then I would go in and edit. And that makes more sense to me. Notice this is giving my top options. I can just select quizzes options and only get quizzes options. And that works out really well if that's all you're looking for. The other cool part is I can look for lessons. If you notice, this right here is a lesson, and it's a lesson based on a book. So you could actually type in the book that you have, and there's probably tons of lessons that are already built for that particular book that you have. My suggestion is always change a couple of the questions, because unfortunately, like anything digital, the kids have already figured out how to cheat on this. So if you change a couple of the questions, then it helps a lot, and they learn not to cheat on your quizzes because they know you've changed questions. The other thing, like I've been talking about, is teleporting questions from the public quizzes library. Once you've chosen a quiz, you get this window. Once you get this window, you're always going to want to hit copy and edit if you're looking to teleport new questions in, or edit and add new questions of your choice. And then I don't know why this keeps removing itself for me. That's not what I wanted. You could start a live quiz. If you like the quiz the way it is, you can start a live quiz here, or you can assign homework to whatever class you want to assign to. And that's going to be another lesson on how to assign homework. But if you hit this copy and edit button, you're going to get something like this once you hit that copy and edit button. So I just took the same, if you notice the picture is the same, I took that same quiz to copy and edit. And now, because I'm a super user, I have this teleport from Quizizz library. And this is where I can go through every single one of these questions, and I can say, I like it, I don't, I want to change it, whatever. You just edit and you change the question. If you want to teleport more questions in, because maybe you've taken 10 of those questions out, who knows? You can teleport questions and you can search for exactly what you want. Be specific with the keyword, but there is always something for what you want. So that's a super cool part about the teleport and editing questions. Note that once you edit something in Quizizz, it actually, you become the author of that. So you can choose then to make it public or private at that point. I'm going to tell you, I make all mine public because what do we do in teaching? The best ideas we ever had were shared. So my suggestion is don't house everything with yourself because you're really not being a part of the teaching team if you're doing that. So everything I do is public. You can look me up on Quizizz, and you're going to find tons of stuff that I've done. It is mostly for chemistry. So if you look me up for anything else, you're not going to find a whole lot. All right, what else do you need to know? This is the good stuff. Quizizz provides immediate feedback to you and the students. So every time you're in Quizizz, every time they take a quiz, it's immediate. You can be running a dual screen as they pull their stuff in, and you can say, Johnny, you've done 5 questions I can see, and you haven't done the next 15 or however many you assigned. And you can look at them. It's going to show you a screen of exactly what they're doing. And my kids actually don't like this, but they do, because I can tell them, hey, you're not, everybody else is finished with this quiz and you've only done 50%. What's the deal? Let's get on this. So that immediate feedback is cool. And you get this a toolbar that shows you where everybody is at that moment in time. One thing you have to know is that you have to keep hitting refresh to say, oh yeah, I got to refresh this, because it's going to be an up to date refresh. So every time you hit refresh, it's going to be up to that minute that you refreshed. So you want to make sure you do that, because otherwise you don't want to call on a kid that you thought was on question 5 when they're now on question 15. You are able to choose how they receive feedback. You can say, I'm going to let them, have the answers, or I'm going to let them only validate the answers, or, that's always up to you when you assign the test. How do you want to do that? So there's a couple of boxes that you have to hit. One of the big boxes you always want to hit is default timer. Kids hate timers that when they time out, the question ends and they miss the question. That meets the needs of so many of your students if you don't time out your kids. Default timer on Quizizz only is for rank for these kids. So if they're like wanting to be number 1 in the rank, the default timer is great for them. But if you have a kid, like I have a child this year that is autistic, he's high functioning autistic, and he can't handle the timer. And finally, it took me about 6 weeks to help him understand that default only kept him in the rank, but it never shut down his question. And that relieves so much pressure off of that child. So just keep that in mind when you're getting that feedback. Um, Keep it at default timer. That's my biggest suggestion. If you want them timed, that's fine. Just understand that not every kid loves a timer, and not every kid performs well under a timer that's going to cut that question off at the end. So just that's just one thing to keep in mind. You get correct or incorrect validation, or you can like set it to say that gives them the right answer after each question or at the end. And that's your choice if you want to, how you want to give those correct answers, if you want to give them, but you don't have to. Once you get to your reports section, it's really cool because reports can give you all kinds of stuff. If you tag questions with, for example, in Texas, we use TEKS. And if you tag questions with standards, you can get a report by standard of how those kids did. So last year, I taught a state tested course, biology. It's a high school course. That's a gatekeeper. And if kids don't pass biology, then they either have to be arted out or something has to happen to keep them um, from not graduating high school, right? Like something has to be done. I've sat in plenty of meetings with this. This is a great way if you're tagging questions on a state mandated course that's got an EOC test at the end of the year. It's important to tag your questions so that you know how your students are doing. I currently don't teach any state mandated courses, so I don't tag my questions. I just want to know how my kids are doing. What percent are we getting on this? So there's lots of things you can do here. But like I said, I don't tag questions, and that works out well for me as the teacher. What works out well for you is great. If you want to tag every question, that's fine. But when you don't tag questions, and even when you do, you can still get your reports by participant, by question, or by overview. And I'm going to show you how to do those because it's really cool how you do these. So the first thing I'm going to show you is when you want to create, not create, we already done that. When you want to look at your reports. So you would click literally on reports because this is your sidebar. Obviously, this is my account. This is your sidebar bar, and you can see there that I have a retest running. I have a quiz running. I have a water cycle thing running. I got all kinds of things that are currently running. And when I want to look at those reports, I literally just click on that particular report, and I'm like, okay, this is what I want to look at. I want to look at who's doing what and how they're doing. I have a couple of choices. The first choice that I have really is to download. I can download it, and it downloads into a beautiful Excel document. And I'll show you how that works. And I just, for the record, this is pretty cool. 82%. It was a retest, y'all. So that's why they always do better on the retest. But this is one way that I actually run my retest is I run them through Quizizz. They get a paper test the first time, and then I run the retest through Quizizz. I actually pull a lot of stuff from their original test, put it on the retest. And because I don't use questions a lot that were already in Quizizz, they really have to work for this test. So they're always really proud when they do well. So I was pretty excited that 53 out of 64 students, and by the way, those 64 students are in 2 classes, but 53 of them mastered it 82%. So I was pretty proud of that. But once you download, I'll show you what this looks like. When you download something, it looks just like this. And it gives you a portion of the question, not the whole thing. Tells you what type it was, multiple choice. It tells you the percent accuracy. The cool thing about that is I can go back and I say, oh, wait, only 76%. Let me use that as a warm up next time because they're really not understanding this. If I'm only getting 75% of the kids that understand this, it's time to use that as a warm up. If you went further on this report past unattempted, it actually gives you by student, but of course, there's certain laws that keep me from sharing student names with you guys. So, but it will tell me by student how they scored on every single question like this. So that's pretty cool. But you can see here how many got them correct, how many got them incorrect, and like I said, that 76%, I really would want to validate. Why did those 12 get that wrong, and where is the misconception here? So that's actually a cool feature when you can download into that Excel spreadsheet. And also being Excel, it's editable. So if there's certain parts of this that you don't care about, like you don't want to know, you knew they're all multiple choice, you can take that whole thing out, which is amazing. Being able to take out that whole multiple choice portion. And you know what the questions are too. So maybe you just want accuracy, average time per question, correct, incorrect, unattempted, and maybe you want the rest of your students after that. That's fine. If you're downloading that in Excel, you can delete those columns and get exactly what you want, which is one thing that I really like about using Excel versus anything else. The next thing is if you want to look at it from, I can't show you participants and I apologize, but and that's because it includes my student names. But if you want to look at it by question, this is how it's going to show you. You hit questions and it's going to show every single question, one through whatever you did. And then you can see how your kids did. And I would love to say that this is amazing, but if my kids don't know this by February, then we have a problem. But 93% of my students who took this test, those 53 students, know that metals tend to lose electrons. And it may be because I've always said all metals are losers. Who knows? But I can look at all these questions and say, okay, did these little things work? And if they didn't, then I can say, oh, wait, only 76% of these kids got this right. Why are they answering the other 2 questions? And that could be a point of learning for my kids to say, hey, you didn't learn this and here's why. So it's a pretty cool thing to do. If you want to look at an overview, I cut the kids' names off, but it shows you by score, if that's how you chose to do it, what each kid did and what they got right. Now, if you went further down the line, of course, the scores are dropping. You're going to see some red spaces instead of some checks where they got those wrong. And you can account for those individually per student if you want to do that. That's another cool feature of this is you can say, wait, okay, well, these are my beautiful things here, but look, I got 69% and 71%, and who got these wrong and why? And maybe pull those into small group and do some tier 2 work with them and say, I've got this wrong and you got this problem wrong, and we got to figure out what's going on here and why you're getting this wrong. So that's just another thing to think about that this overview gives you. It's a quick overview, which is nice. Topics, I don't tag topics because I don't have, my courses are not tested. So if they were tested and if I had a little bit more time, maybe I would tag the topics. But if you tag topics, it's really cool because you can see how they did by each standard. And if you're doing standards based grading, this actually may be another thing you can do to show, standards wise what your kids were doing. So, next question here, and if you get the link for this and you go to the link, you can actually, because it's Pear Deck again, you can say, do you agree or disagree that utilizing digital tools for formative assessment in the classroom is right or wrong? Do you agree or you disagree? And so this is a drag and drop. It's one of those Pear Deck things that's really cool. And so you just drag it, yes, agree, or no, I don't agree. And then you figure it out from there. So that's cool. And I actually provided the link so you can do this if you want to. And I'm looking forward to seeing your results. All right. So I'm kind of going off Rick DeFore's like the what, the how, the why. And I'm going to stick to the how here. How will we know that students are learning? How do you know that they can do it? How do you know that you can get them to the top? So there's a couple of student challenges in this. You can choose to have a leaderboard. These are all radio buttons that you can put on when you assign the test. You can choose power ups. You can choose redemption questions. All of these are available. One thing I found was that when I take away leaderboard, power ups, and redemption questions, it affects my top of the top kids. They're the ones that always want to be on top. They want to know that they're number one. They want to know that they're, if they get a power up, that's great. I've actually had some of my top students say to me, does this Quizizz include redemption questions? Because they want to make sure that if they make a mistake, they have a redemption to get it right again. So just so you know that those student challenges, leaderboard power ups, and redemption questions, those are like the gold medal for your GT and your learners that are just above average, way above average. They love those. Funny thing is throughout the year, your kids that you thought were just on level suddenly want to be a part of that leader board. They want those power ups. They want those redemption questions. So that's all cool too, because you start meeting the needs of individual learners at their space at meet them where they are. But I will tell you in the beginning, these right here, the student challenges are your GT kids eat them up and they love them. I keep missing my PowerPoints here. Embedded supports, like I talked about, the default timer, that is super duper important that you use the default timer with them. And that's because some kids don't do well with timers and they don't do well. All they can see is that timer going down, and it's a training method. You have to tell them default timer means nothing. It means that when the time runs out, it doesn't matter. You have time to answer the question. But for some default timers, they're trying to beat the timer and they're going to answer the question for like your more advanced kids. But for your kids that may be advanced, but they can't handle timers, default timers your best bet. There's also an immersive reader that you can set forth. I haven't done it with very many of my students. I individually have assigned a few things to some ESL students, but it has an immersive reader and it will actually read the questions to students. So like you, I also have so many struggling students that cannot read very well. And this immersive reader actually helps them. I don't utilize it as much as I should, but I mean, we're all working, right? We're learning every day. All right. So how do you feel? Where are you on this lesson? I mean, these are all emojis of sorts. And so if you're running this through Pear Deck, what you would do is you could actually ask your audience, how do you feel about this? What do you think? And they could all check and you could figure out where they're landing. So quizzes and STEM, that's the next question. How in the world am I ever going to use this with STEM? Well, here's how it can support STEM. You can create lessons and embedded videos. Lessons, you're able to download complete PowerPoints, which is really cool because, PowerPoints are super boring. So if you have your kids like run through a quick PowerPoint that you put together, or run through a PowerPoint / embedded videos. You do have to be careful in the fact that YouTube has been cut off for every student. So your videos have to be either an MP3 that you put in or an MP4. I think I need to speak the right language that you're putting in and you've recorded, or something that you know that they have access to access to from your district. It is a formative assessment on the spot. If you want to ask your kids 5 questions and say, take this 5-question quizzes, and you want to check it super fast and say, okay, I've got you right here. You got these 5 right, or you missed this one, and individually tell kids, why did you miss this one? And then it gives immediate feedback. That's the cool thing. The kids want immediate feedback, so why not give it? And then you have reteach topics and you have retest topics. So if you have something like I said, I got 76% on that one question and I didn't like that, I could actually build a small lesson on the reteach of that particular topic. Or I can retest. I can run an entire retest, which I do often. I give them a paper test, and then their retest is based on the things that they weren't getting, and I throw it into a retest for them. So STEM and Quizizz are like partners together. You can, if you're working with microcontrollers, engineering, design process, mathematics, any little thing can work with Quizizz.